You need to unlearn and relearn when investing in India.
Where India is today, in my opinion, those are the kinds of companies which, if they deliver, quite literally, if they deliver what they say they will, it's a recipe for success and for compounding. There are, if I'm not mistaken, 18 or 19 unicorns in construction tech around the world. 6 years ago, the US was the clear leader with, I think, six or seven. There were none from India at the time. Now, if you fast forward 6 years, interestingly, the number of construction tech unicorns in the US still remains same at six. But India now, in the same time period, has gone from zero unicorns to five unicorns.
Pain point in the Indian market have these companies solved that they've got the unicorn status?
Like many other things we've seen in India, it's all getting crunched simultaneously. We are making this jump from being a pre-industrial society and economy to suddenly transitioning all the way to the information age.
What's the next big opportunity in the Indian construction space? In this episode of Constructing Tomorrow, we have Shubhankar Bhattacharya. Shub is a general partner at Foundamental, a global venture capital firm investing in the construction technology space. Shub has over 15 years of experience as a VC investor, founder, and operator. He currently leads Fundamental's investments for Asia Pacific and Africa region. This is the second part, and in this episode, we discuss construction tech landscape in India, construction unicorns and aspects behind their success, why is marketplace business model successful in India, how is investing in India different as compared to other countries, barriers for big tech companies in Western countries to break into India, what is the next big opportunity in the Indian construction space. With that said, I bring you Shub. I know earlier you kind of mentioned about fundamental investing everywhere around the globe. I want to spend some more time just to talk about India. We both have backgrounds from India. So give me a rundown on what the construction tech landscape looks like in India right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, construction tech in India has evolved enormously in the time we've been tracking it. So, to give you a sense, that we started Fundamental back in 2018. So, at that time, when I was speaking with some of my peers and fellow VCs in the Indian ecosystem, some of them actually the first reaction was, "What is even construction tech?" Right? To give you a sense of how esoteric and unknown construction tech as a word or as a phrase was in the Indian ecosystem, many didn't even know what that means or what it entails, right? And that was not too long ago, just less than 6 years ago. To now, and again, I'll recall this from the best of my memory. My partner Patrick had done a more detailed analysis on this for those of you who are interested. But I think we've done an analysis as of now. There are, if I'm not mistaken, 18 or 19 unicorns in construction tech around the world. 6 years ago, the US was the clear leader with, I think, six or seven. And there was a bit of a distribution elsewhere in the world across China, Australia, Israel, etc. There were none from India at the time. Now, if you fast forward 6 years, that is to today, interestingly, the number of construction tech unicorns in the US still remains same at six,
Mm.
right? I think they've had one other new unicorn, but some others have also died along the way or have gone bust along the way.
Mm-hmm.
But India now, in the same time period, has gone from zero unicorns to five unicorns,
Oh, wow.
right? So India is almost neck to neck with the US in terms of unicorn creation, and obviously for your statistical nerds or those kinds, if you plot it, it wouldn't look pretty for the US. I mean,
Yeah.
the trend would suggest that very soon India will displace the US in terms of unicorn activity in construction tech. Which, I mean, to be honest with you, we have been big believers in India for a while. India has actually been the market where we have deployed the most money so far as a single region, just narrowly ahead of the US as a sheer coincidence. And while we always had big hopes and promises, it has actually far exceeded what we thought would happen. And one thing we've actually been very heartened by is even the unicorns which have been created thus far, one of which is our portfolio company, Inframarket, which we're very proud to be associated with. Another also actually happens to be a company where I was the first investor, but prior to my time with Fundamental. That company is Zetwork. Uh, the unique aspect of some of these unicorns that we've seen coming out of India is like this unique combination of rapid scale, being profitable, and being having significant market share. So what I mean by that is these are not inflated or bubbly startup valuation type
Mm.
companies. These are companies which can hold their valuation on their own in even a public market setting,
Hmm.
with very rational investors having to value the company. And we have actually been tremendously heartened by what we have seen. A lot of, even outside of the unicorns, many of our other portfolio companies in India, I would say they're actually trending extremely well. This is not to say that everything is hunky dory in India. It's not the in full disclosure, it's not the easiest place to invest in. It's not the easiest place for foreign investors to be active in as well. I will call that out. But even with that in mind, it's been a tremendously attractive market to invest in. And we are actually very grateful for, I think we have 15 or 16 investments in India so far. We're only going to double down a bit more. In fact, that reminds me, let me look up. I think I had seen some statistic somewhere. Oh, yeah, I found it. So, this is something I had come across recently. So, if you look at the top five economies today in GDP terms, so that's in decreasing order, that would be the US, China, Germany, Japan, and India. And you look at the publicly listed companies there, right? And you try to identify how many of those publicly listed companies have had a revenue growth exceeding 20% year on year for the last 20 years, right? So, you're talking about a sustained period of strong growth in those companies over 20 years, right? The numbers are quite stark. So, let me tell you what that looks like. So, in Germany, there is no such company, right?
Oh,
There is no publicly listed company in Germany which has grown 20% year on year for the last 20 years, right? In Japan, there are two.
okay,
In China, there are five. In the US, there are 35.
okay.
And guess how many are in India?
50?
156. Yes. So
Wow.
so I think that gives you a flavor of just how much secular and robust growth exists in India, right? Right. Again, I want to caveat, this doesn't mean everything is perfect in India, right? There's lots of challenges. It's quite hard for many, in many ways, but it's also extremely exciting, right? A lot of the growth and the excitement is also real. It's supported by real metrics like revenue growth, sustained revenue growth over long periods of time. uh, and I find that tremendously exciting.
Hmm. I got a couple of follow-up questions on this, but before that, which were the five unicorns in construction space in India, if you could name them?
Sure. So that would be infra
Mm-hmm.
market, right? Then it would be off business.
Okay,
The third would be Zetwork.
okay,
The fourth would be Moglix.
okay,
And the fifth would be LiveSpace.
okay. And if you don't mind, I know about Intermarket. Off business, what do they do?
So off business operates again like a marketplace for B2B construction materials as well as other materials like polymers, plastics, etc. Where apart from facilitating the procurement of these materials through tenders and whatnot, they finance it, as in they extend financing for procurement of these materials. Zetwork is a manufacturing marketplace for made-to-order products. This would be a lot in, for example, infrastructure, renewables, energy, steel and power industry. Basically for manufacturing these heavy non-standard goods and equipment and supporting components in these industries. Moglix, what they do is they're a provider and a supplier of MRO components, so that is maintenance, repair, and operations. So not too dissimilar from Granger in the US, for example. Yeah, LiveSpace is like a, uh marketplace for homeowners or home dwellers to get their interiors designed and built by contractors and even get it furnished, etc.
Do you mind also talking about Intermarket just for folks who don't know about it?
Sure. So infra market, in a very oversimplified way, think of it like an Amazon for construction materials. It definitely doesn't accurately describe it, but it's the closest if you want a super short, super dumbed down explanation. What it actually means is they operate like a marketplace connecting manufacturers on one side who produce under the inframarket brand, mind you, for various categories like cement, concrete, paints, tiles, sanitary ware, plumbing fittings, wood, etc. And they supply these components or these products under their brands to infrastructure clients, real estate firms, end customers as well who directly buy the infra market products.
So, one observation that I just thought of right now is out of these five unicorns, three to four of them are marketplace companies.
I think you could classify all of them as marketplaces.
So, what pain point in the Indian market have these companies solved that they've got the unicorn status? And all of them being marketplace.
Yes, I think, and I hope doesn't come across the wrong way. I think what India is the transition it's going through today, the way I would describe it as we are very rapidly going from an economy or a society that was in a pre industrial state and which is rapidly going from a pre industrial state to the information stage. And what I mean by that is, if, for example, you look at where the US and Europe is, they've gone through the stages of industrialization sometime in the 19th century. Sometime in the 1950s to 70s, they went through, let's call it a digital age, where computing became more relevant. Lots of stuff got started entering in the software. And more recently, they've entered the information age, where stuff is digitally available everywhere. You can access it and you can interpret it to make smarter decisions and higher order and achieve higher order performance. In India, what is happening is, like many other things you've seen in India, it's all getting crunched simultaneously. We are making this jump from being a pre-industrial society and economy to suddenly transitioning all the way to the information age. And the reason why I think that is important, and that is why VCs investing in, by the way, this comment is true for many other aspects of construction tech in general across the world. It is also true for India in general. And I think the reason why this is important is you, in general, if you think purely as a digital VC or as a lover of digital models, it would be hard for you to appreciate this transition from a pre industrial state. Because in a pre industrial state, a lot of digital formats don't exist. You still have to solve for real world grassroots problems in the physical ways before you can think of digitizing them and interpreting the digital information. I think the reason why marketplaces, and especially B2B marketplaces, why India is like a leader in B2B marketplaces across the world, is these sorts of models kind of represent the most efficient way to make that jump, where you can in quickly transition, because what they represent, again, in full disclosure, none of these companies are what you describe as high tech, but what they represent is an extremely reliable method and their own built out infrastructure to deliver stuff and to deliver outcomes that they promise, which in a society or an economy like India and what it needs right now, it's very critical and what everyone wants.
Mm. I think you can also tie this to, like, you see all these delivery applications or companies in India, right? I feel like the value of time is getting more valued, I guess. Just in time delivery or whenever you want it. This food delivery is delivering, I don't know, 10 minutes as quick as possible. And I think some of the success also applies to this construction companies. Oh, hey, if I need this material by today, you are getting it today. And I feel from the outset, maybe that's the reason for the success.
I think that definitely has a spillover effect for sure.
You also had a comment somewhere that you need to unlearn and relearn when investing in India. If you can elaborate more on that.
I mean, I think so. Look, many things that I had learned previously as an investor, and the context here is, prior to Fundamental, I was a generalist investor investing in all all every sector basically. Uh, and when you're looking at construction tech in India in particular, you need to understand that we are in this pre-industrial state, and you cannot come at it from, hey, I want to see software, and software is the ways things scale, or you need to, if you have an obsession or a checklist sort of item to see, hey, I need to see some aspect that makes this business very light or very obviously technologically enabled. A lot of businesses in India in the early days do not look like that, or at least the businesses that, in my opinion, tend to do very well do not look like that. because that is not what the market needs. So, for example, and I think I can take that liberty because you'll probably understand what I'm about to say now. Let's say you're talking to a contractor in India or a blue collar
Hmm.
worker in India. He's probably not going to care what the UI of your software is going to be, right?
Right.
Or how fast it renders and stuff like that. All he
Yeah.
cares about is, hey, if you said certain stuff will be delivered, or certain service will be delivered at a certain price
Yeah.
and by so and so time, whether that has happened or not, it is as binary as that, right?
Yeah.
If it gets done, he's happy and he'll probably recommend you. If it's not, he'll probably not use you again, right?
Yeah.
So you basically, your business models and what you offer needs to incorporate that. And if you
Mm.
incorporate that, it allows you a basis on which to compound on. I mean, if you think about it, if you go back 30 years, this is probably what Amazon looked like back in the day, in its earliest days. It probably did not look like a high tech company. It just looked like a very reliable company which did exactly what it said. And where India is today, in my opinion, those are the kinds of companies which, if they deliver, quite literally, if they deliver what they say they will, it's a recipe for success and for compounding.
I also had another question about why aren't these big tech companies not in the Indian market space? Is it just a price point or not getting enough enterprise customers? Like, why are they getting held back in Indian market?
So I think it's both of what you said, as in both the answers perfectly explain it. I think in India, uh, referencing some of our discussions from just now, what the market needs is certainty of outcomes and someone to take ownership of outcomes. There is a thin layer on the top in terms of very large contractors, etc., who want to be able to spend a whole lot more on software for better accountability. And truth be told, everyone would benefit from more visibility, more transparency, more digitization. So the question is not so much whether people will benefit or not. The question is, where does it show up in their list of priorities? So if you were to ask any of the contractors or major developers in India where they would stack up their priorities, having a digitized interface for project management is probably not amongst the highest. The highest higher probabilities is they want to maximize their revenue, improve their utilization, reduce costs, etc. So, for better or worse, it's lower down the priority list, which means there is lower willingness to pay, and there is a smaller addressable market today for these kinds of solutions. Uh, it might be different in the future. I do think it will eventually change in the future. So it's more of a timing thing in my view. The timing right now is not in favor of solutions like that.
Mm. And you mentioned future. So what's the next big opportunity in the Indian construction space? I'm talking like next 5 to 10 years.
So, one kind of opportunity I'm very excited about, but we haven't yet made a bet, and I would be very interested to evaluate solutions of this kind. Is so I'm guessing you're familiar with Infosys and TCS, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for the benefit of our viewers and listeners, so these are very, very large firms, market leaders when it comes to outsourced IT services or outsourced knowledge workers, basically. So if you have IT services or knowledge processes that needs to be outsourced, and quite often when the stereotype is it's being outsourced to India, inevitably it would be outsourced to a firm like TCS or Infosys. And to give our viewers and listeners a sense of the scale, I think TCS is valued at something like $170 billion. So definitely not a
Mm.
small firm. And Infosys is about 80, 90 billion. And my thinking is, why can't we have a new age firm of this kind, like something like an Infosys or TCS, but for AEC, that is architecture, engineering, construction. And it could be just a pure outsourcing model, or it could be outsourcing augmented by product and AI, right? And I think a model like this, in my opinion, it's quite logical that it should come from India, simply because India has the knowledge surplus, the worker surplus to enable a model like this to be born. And I'm quite excited to see a company like this emerge from India, I have to say.
Yeah, I think because even now a lot of, like, say, a steel subcontractor in the US, most of the times they do get the shop drawings prepared from India.
That's right.
And but those are like small firms. But again, to your point, if we have someone big like an Infosys, I'm just kind of curious to understand, wouldn't that slide more towards the service industry and not really a tech industry?
It could, which is why I'm saying it would have to be reimagined for this generation. So, what I mean by that is it's not only humans or knowledge workers working away to deliver the final product, it is a much
Mm,
smaller number of humans and workers who are also augmented by AI and product. That's
mm,
what I mean.
that makes
Yeah.
sense. Got it. I got a few rapid fire questions for you. So, the first one is, what's the biggest myth about VC?
That it's a very glamorous profession. It is not. There's a lot
Okay.
of grunt work and patience involved.
Second, if you were not a VC, what would you do?
Oof. I'd probably start another company, start a startup in other words.
Do you have a specific industry or?
Hmm. Unfortunately, I don't. Since you're pressing me for an answer right now in a rapid fire, I'd probably, given what I know now in the construction world, probably think of something to do in
Hmm,
construction tech.
construction. Got it. What's your go-to productivity hack?
To work out, specifically lift heavy weights.
Got it. What's one underrated skill for a startup founder?
To compartmentalize, as in to focus on things that matter, carve them out into specific buckets, and ensure they don't bleed into each other in a way that causes you stress and causes you to get overwhelmed by things. You need to learn how to compartmentalize different aspects of not only your business but also different aspects of your life, so that you do each of them justice and they don't bleed into each other.
Awesome. The last one I have is, do you have any book recommendations?
I haven't read books in quite a while, I have to say, but I'm assuming you want a non-fiction recommendation. So
Mm-hmm.
I will go with Thinking Fast and Slow. By, if I'm not mistaken, the author is Daniel Kahneman.
Okay. Awesome. I think this was a great session, Shub. Again, really appreciate your time and sharing your valuable insights.
Hey, it was fun, Sid. I hope this was enjoyable for you and the viewers and listeners as well. I really appreciate you having me over.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Constructing Tomorrow. I hope this episode provided valuable insights and tips. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and drop a review or a comment. Until next time, keep building and stay curious.